Thank you for joining us for Monday Morning Musings, Freddie. This replaces the PrepXtra Live Friday night show. Maybe that's bad on one level that people don't get their fill of us, because that's what they want, right? Right. On Friday night, but that means also that we've had the whole weekend to think about what's happened and look back on it and, of course, play it forward to the following week. That's exactly what we're going to do right now.
And as we move forward with this Aram, one thing we could do this on Monday, I want to be able to throw in some videos, throw in some things that we gather over the weekend that you can look at. We won't have those today, but as the season goes on, we want to improve the quality of the show, things that we talk about, videos that we could sub in. So it's just something different. It seems like every year we've tried to do something different. So let's see how this goes.
You'll be at the junior college taking a Saturday class on how to edit
exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
I got this, Aaron.
All right, no problem. Okay, anyways, where we're going to start now, Freddie, is we, like I said, we are going to take a look back at what happened the previous week, but we're going to talk about what it means. That's the more important issue, what it means going forward. The great place to start is arguably the biggest win of week 0 came when La Mirada beat Orange Lutheran deep in the heart of Orange County, 21-14, Freddie. Mike Machete, the head coach at La Mirada, had taken his shots. I thought I read somewhere like they played Trinity League teams 15 times. Finally breaks through. I don't know if that 15 number is correct. And what's it mean for La Mirada?
Well, we don't know if this is one of the great Division I teams from the Trinity. I think we'll find that out in the following weeks when Orange Lutheran plays more games. But huge for La Mirada. I mean, what a run they've been on since winning the CIF and state championship. And we talked about it last week. This was the game. I mean, this is one of the games they really wanted. They wanted to beat one of those Division I teams. And look, it's only going to get more difficult for them in the coming weeks because they're playing St. John Bosco, one of those teams you can argue best in California, best in the nation. It seems like they're there every year. But for a week at least.
And then Mater Dei.
And then Mater Dei. And we saw what Mater Dei did. We'll talk about that in a bit. But La Mirada right now, when you look at our coverage area, Aram, the Tribune, Whittier Daily News, and Pasadena Star News, I think they've surpassed Bishop Amat and anything else we have as the team right now in this area. And Machete, he's building this forward. I don't think this is one of those things where you're going to say, this is a one-trick pony. He's been doing this now for a few years. He's built to this spot. They've got their championships. They've got all that mojo that you want right now. And winning that game last week, I know it was a close game. They came back to win it, but good for them.
Yeah, it's something off the checklist now, if not the bucket list, right? They've won a state title, they've won a Southern Regional, they've won a Southern Section Championship. Yeah. All that was out of the way, and now you have to wonder, what kind of swag did they pick up last year, Freddie? Because Machete said going into this Orange Lutheran game, we're not going to be intimidated. But if you looked at past results against the Trinity League, maybe they should have been. And he said we've played in big games. Yeah. And that's what happens when you win a state championship. These players at La Mirada have been in big games. So going to Orange Lutheran, not going to shake them.
Yeah, it's funny, a few years ago, Machete, they came out with, look at all of these guys that are going D1 and they're recruiting to get into school. And then they would lay an egg in the playoffs or something would happen and you try to figure this out. Well, how does all these great players correlate to, why aren't they winning championships? And I think he's been building to that. You can obviously see he's been building that. Not only do they have those next level players that you could talk about and you can brag about, these recruiters coming out, but they build the base behind that where they have depth and players that can compete at the highest levels. I mean, for a public school, we've seen Charter Oak try it. They couldn't do it. We wanted Mir to do it back in the day with Pasadena, and maybe they did it way back in the 80s. But lately, we've seen nobody able to take that next step up as a public school, and they are. And if you want to get to that level of where Centennials are in public schools, or where maybe the Uplands and Rancho Cucamongas have been in some years, this is what you've got to do. And this is why they're so popular over there. This is why I think parents on the outside looking in, when they're looking at public schools, places you can go to send your kids for free in a day where there's open enrollment and where the worst you could do maybe is set out 5 games, this becomes an attraction.
And it has been. I mean, look at the guys they have there and where they started their high school career. Machete's spiel is very publicly, do you want to play second string at Mater Dei or St. John Bosco? Or do you want to come to La Mirada and play first string and, go deep in the playoffs and get offers and get seen? You may not get seen. If you're a senior or a junior, playing, behind some college freak, college-bound freak at St. John Bosco. So that whole angle of it works, Fred. But to use a term or a word that Machete and the people in La Mirada like to use for some reason, you're not a guru until you are.
Yeah.
And he always likes to call like me a guru or other people a guru. And I know he's being sarcastic, okay? Even though he probably acts like he's being serious about it when he call people gurus in La Mirada. But that's exactly what Machete has become now. Because, like you said, the promoting recruits, the videos with all the multiple uniform things, he took a lot of heat for that.
Yeah.
But look who's right. Look who comes out on top. He's now beaten the Trinity League. And like we said last week, Orange Lutheran, not one of the elite Trinity or D1 teams, but they're in that one notch below category, we think.
And it's not easy. We've seen teams like West Covina, Charter Oak, teams in this area, even Colony, try to take on those next level teams that weren't exactly St. John Bosco or some of the super juggernauts, but they struggled. They struggled anytime they really tried.
And this is great for the area too. I mean, it's nice for these area teams to beat a team like Orange Lutheran, Fred. So. Great win by La Mirada. Now here comes St. John Bosco. We'll have a 2-minute drill looking forward to that game. I shouldn't say a 2-minute drill, but a preview and prediction. We'll roll that out tomorrow. Now, moving on, Freddie, the other side of the coin. Whereas La Mirada was the big win of the week, the big loss of the week, Bishop Amat to Mater Dei, running clock in the fourth quarter, Freddie. I came home Friday night and watched the broadcast with John Jackson and Chris Ricks and all those guys in Farber. Into the wee hours of the morning, and I started hearing John Jackson start talking about division placement, and I didn't know this was back on the table, but I guess it is, because Amat, cemented itself as a D1 Pac-5 team the last couple of years by being in the semifinals, but now people are kind of projecting things and talking about, is there a possibility they'll go down? If they have a 3-7 year, if they have a bad year, I still think even with a bad year, they bought themselves enough credibility to stay up for one more year. But something's going to have to happen. Positively.
Now, help me. Do they revisit this every 2 years or every year?
He uses the last 2 years.
No. I mean the next division realignment.
Yes, will be next year, but he's going to base it on the last 2 years of data. This being Glenn Martinez.
Right, and obviously, if you use the last 2 years, they went to the semifinals with one of their best teams they had since the 90s, whatever. Right. If Bishop Amat continues Aram on the trajectory that it looks like, and they are not getting a lot of I don't want to say they're not getting a lot of next level players. We'll have to figure that out. But there's something definitely going on there that is cause for big concern, and a reason to believe that maybe 3-4 years from now, they do drop to Division 2 or Division 3. You look at what's happened to St. Paul, a team that's got away from, they were a Division 1 juggernaut at one time, and it's been a slow but big fall down to they're in Division what now?
6
with
or
Charter
7,
Oak and one of those teams. It happens if there's not a commitment to your football team. And look, I'll say this about Bishop Amat. Coach Steve Haggerty and their staff, absolutely great football coaches. But what's going on at Bishop Amat, you've got to start asking yourself after watching that game this weekend. You look last year, Aaron, we said this is the best team they've had since probably the 1990s.
Right.
When they got into that semifinal game against St. John Bosco, they got smacked by 50 points. So your best team since the 1990s against those super elite, where you aspire to be.
St. John Bosco, Centennial.
Modern Day now. I don't care if you're talking about Bishop Gorman in Nevada or Concord de La Salle up north. If you're Bishop Amat and you look at your history, what you did in the 90s, what you did in the 80s with Pat Hayden, where you competed at Division 1, you competed for Division 1 championships at the highest level. Well, to get there, you've got to play the games like the Boscos and the Gormans, the Centennials. Play the game, and what I mean is you've got to attract players that way. You've got to make it easy for them to get in your school.
You're talking about getting players.
Getting players.
Right. Okay.
And that's my big concern for them going forward. I mean, Amat.
They're not going to do that.
It's the old-fashioned way over there. Whatever comes
like
there shows
Francis.
that we're going to mold this into the Amat guy, and that's going to be good enough.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, that might be good enough to get you into the Division 1 playoffs, but I think it's not going to be good enough to compete at those highest levels. It's just not. So you're going to have to ask yourself, is it going to be okay for Bishop Amat to drop down to Division 2 or 3 maybe the next couple of years if they don't covet cut it and compete for championships at that level.
I
say that's fine.
I
think a lot of the alumni represent that. I think Coach Haggerty and the staff, who's been adamant about having to move down, they believe that.
No, they want to stay up.
They think that tradition is deserving of being number one.
Right.
And it's not going to work that way.
It's not.
They're going to have to somehow attract and get those players to come there that compete at that level. And right there, they're not. Even if you look at last year, they had the 5 or 6. They maybe had 10 players that were great, and that still wasn't special enough. So to get to the special enough to win at that level, they're going to have to do something different. Because right now their trajectory, to me, their freshman team got beat pretty bad by Modern Day.
Right.
I don't see that next level.
Numbers are down.
I don't see that next level
team
coming up, and it's going to be a long year. Look, the only non-league win on the schedule where I can pencil in right now and say I think they're going to get one is St. Paul. Their last game before they go on and play in the Mission League. I think they lose their next 2 weeks. They have 2 more Trinity League teams.
Right.
It's going to get hard for them. But yeah, Aram, I think if you're Bishop Amat, there is a big concern. Where is our program going? Forget this year. It's going to struggle. And I understand you can have a down year after you graduate.
I don't know about forget this year.
I think forget this year in terms of.
I don't know.
You think they're going to win
I
don't think they're going to win it.
Maybe not the league, but I think the Mission League has a lot of teams with a lot of problems this year, Fred. So I think that Amat could finish top 3 in there if everything breaks right, and they will develop.
So.
They will get better.
I just don't see
They'll
it.
get better.
They're
going to get better. They'll be a better team in October and November than they are in September.
The thing about Bishop Amat, even with their good teams there, it seemed like they would give up a lot of points, and I think they're going to give up a lot of points this year. I don't think their offense. We were talking about this. You're thinking of wideouts. Who are they? Blake Archuleta, I thought looked pretty good in that game when he came in. But you're right. Who's the game breaker? Who's the guy you can give it to that's going to light it up?
Right. Go 70 yards.
You can go Dominic Barrera in the backfield. He's still a little young. I don't think he's like ready for a takeover back. I think he's going to be really good. I just don't see where that offense is going to be able to match points with a lot of Mission League teams' offense or some of the Trinity League teams they have coming up. I just don't see it.
Right. And now, Freddie, you realize this was part of the argument that I was making the last couple years was that, okay, Amat, yes, can compete in the Pac-5 or D1, compete, but there's a ceiling as to how far, they could go. And we've seen that ceiling. And if you're not in a division that you can win, that you realistically can win the championship, then to me, you're not in the right division.
Well, that's where I disagree with you the last 4 years because, and I'll tell you this, you've got to fill 16 teams in those divisions, Aram, and there's probably only 3 or 4 teams who realistically could win it. So what do you do with the other 12? You can't. They have to be in the division, and I think Amat and all of those arguments that we had were one of those teams that deserve to be in that spot in those next 12.
So what's changed? What's to say?
I think
you don't even think they're in the 16 now?
I think
the 4 through 16?
I think they're on a trajectory downward where they're going to fall out of that. I really do. I think they're on a trajectory downward. I think that argument is finally going to make sense at some point where you're going to have to bring them down.
Yeah, stick to it, Aram, and eventually you'll be right.
Yeah.
No, I think you're really right about they're not playing the game right or wrong the way it needs to be played by attracting players and getting guys in and doing those types of things. And that's fine if you don't want to play that game. Yeah. And there's a lot of schools that say, hey, we're not going to sell ourselves if you even want to label it that way. Yeah. And there's a place for those schools. It's called D2, D3.
Well, look at Bishop. Look at they've got a tremendous sports program. Baseball used to be at Division One. When they won some of their championships these past years, those were 3, 4, and 5 division championships. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Their softball team used to be a
they weren't
Division
diminished,
1 team.
Though. Those were great championships.
That's what I'm saying.
They were still one of the better teams in SoCal. Same thing would happen to Amat football. If the team that wins D2 is not the 17th best team in SoCal, it might be one of the top 4 or 5 teams. And you know what the great thing is about this new system that YGOD and CIF put in place, Fred, is that if Amat's good enough to play its way back into D1, they'll be back into D1. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. There's still a season to go here. We're basing it off one big loss to a juggernaut. It was bad optics, I agree.
Right, but I'm looking at last year, and that being their great team and the trajectory that I think they're...
Right, if you didn't go in with that. But remember 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, they were on the goal line with a 2-point conversion that came up just inches short from being in the finals against Corona Centennial. So